All right, Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Ho ho, kute, manigi nigi. It is literally a case of the pauper dancing, if you will, as the battle between Shivambu, that's the former deputy president of the Economic Freedom Fighter, and now newly announced national organizer for the MK party, versus in the red corner, excuse the pun, uh, the current leader and seemingly leader forever of the Economic Freedom, I listed front, but Economic Freedom Party, Economic Freedom Fighter Party, Julius Malema. Now, before I get into any of that tonight, including their little coded jabs, the little veiled 1-2 jabs at each other after having told South Africans that it's going to be cordial between the two, lol. I'll get into that in a moment. Where are my manners? My name, of course, is Usihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. And hey, if you are enjoying the content that I put out, well, then do me a solid favor. Actually, like the channel. That's whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or on X. We're also on TikTok. So make sure you hit that like button, please, and subscribe to the channel. Indeed, speaking about subscribing, where it is most important is for you to subscribe on YouTube. Help me reach my goal, please, of 46,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Now, with that being said, guys, you are very much a part of tonight's show. It won't be too long, about 30 minutes or so, but you're part of the show. So get your comments in, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or on X. Hey, do me a favor. Let me know, comment. Let me know where you are watching from. I have had a very interesting and diverse mix, from Citrus Dal to Kakamas to literally Tasmania, of all places. But you're very much welcome to the show. Let me know where you're watching from, and of course, hit that like button as you stream in. Now, let's get into tonight's show, because as I said, it is a interesting development, albeit foreseeable, even as they pretended at that last conference, press conference, pardon me, to be super cordial with each other. You'll remember those images we played of the press conference announcing, of course, that the deputy president of the EFF, Floyd Shivambu, was saying sayonara, peace, deuces to the EFF, a party that he helped co-found with Julius Malema. And even now, as a co-founder, he was saying that's it, he's done, he's parting ways with the EFF and presumably Julius Malema. Now, with that being said, that promise, as I said, of them being cordial to each other has not lasted long, because the two have traded jabs in a coded, albeit veiled way. And there's two distinct outcomes we're seeing play out here. And it can't be so, it's so stark, the differences in attitude, the differences in almost mood between the two parties. That is the Economic Freedom Fighters and, of course, the MK party. In that green corner that I spoke of is the MK party, which right now, whether you like them or not, they're pretty happy right now. There's growth. Insofar as their first election having done well, having placed and removed and then placed parliamentarians in parliament. There's clearly a mood of progress insofar as them having today announced new leadership. Again, this leadership is being announced not because they had an elective conference. Oh no, they decided they're going to scrap that to a later undetermined date, which baffles me as to how that's democratic and how they've gotten away with that. But okay, we'll park that issue for now. But nonetheless, they've announced a national command, if you will. All these commies in this language, militaristic language, whatever. Toy soldiers is what I often call them. But nonetheless, they've announced a national command, they said. And on that national command are the names of a veritable mix of interesting, dubious, and really has-beens in some case people. I'll get to that list in a moment. What I wanted to do was zoom in on one name, which they announced as now the national organizer of the MK party, with a veritable list of things that he is responsible for. Now, let's go to that one clip which I have prepared that does exactly that. And maybe as I'm doing that, let me buy myself a little bit of time and ask you to smash that like button. I just want to get a few images up on the screen, which I forgot to put up on here, which will help tonight's show. Again, whilst I'm actually literally doing that, guys, let me know where you're watching from. Get the comments coming in, especially if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or on X. Where are you watching the show from tonight? What are your thoughts about the developments over at the MK party? I'll get into that list now as I just prepare it. Apologies for that, folks. That's very tardy of me. Usually, this is all prepared ahead of tonight's show, but we'll get onto that in a second. As I said, it's a very interesting mix of names and indeed characters on this particular list. But one name, which is of course central to tonight's conversation, is the former chairperson of the former deputy leader of the EFF, Floyd Shivambu, who's now the national organizer. There's my list on the MK party. Now, it begs the question. First things first, how did the MK come to announcing these names, having never actually had an elective conference? If you are a member of the MK party, you must be asking yourself that question too. That how is it possible that there is a now leadership collective being announced of the high command, pardon me, is what they're calling it. Meanwhile, no one actually in the party has voted for any of these names. If anybody's watching, they're probably realizing I am stalling. Apologies for that. I'll get to the names just now. As always, when you want something really quickly, it takes forever to load. But speaking about loading, here they are. These are the names of the high command, of course, of the of the MK party, announced today in a press conference which was dubbed by the MK party as the Jacob Zuma addressing the nation. Please spare us the banality. Zuma is just making a press briefing. Here's that first list as I put it up on screen. You can see it there. The leadership collective, we're told, of the high command are as follows. President Jacob Zuma at the top there. Deputy President John Hlophe, that's the former Western Cape High Court president who was dismissed in disgrace by Parliament. He was impeached, first ever judge to be impeached by Parliament because of his disgraceful conduct in trying to influence a judgment on behalf of Jacob Zuma, of course. That behavior found wanting, and he was chucked out as a judge. Now, as a member of MK and parliamentarian, Deputy Secretary General Unombuso Mkhize, and there's that name, National Organizer Unyiko Floyd Shivambu, the National Chairperson, of course, was Nkosinathi Nhleko, who you might remember as the former police minister, I believe. As the former police minister, he's the one who explained in that rather daft way of the idea of a fire pool at Nkandla. Fire pool. Lolzies, that's the individual they've named as their national chairperson. And of course, a few other names there, including other members of the so-called high command. A few interesting names on that list too. But again, tonight's show isn't necessarily about that. That's the rest of the so-called the commanders, if I quote here, who constitute the national high command of the MK party and its highest decision-making body. These leaders come from all provinces of South Africa and represent different skills, experience, expertise, generational mix, and blah, blah, blah. And they have confidence in them. Now, there's a reason why they're saying that bit, especially that bit of, oh, they come from all provinces. Remember, one of the biggest criticisms of the MK party is that they are seen as an MK regional, that is, they're seen as a KZN regional party that is often associated strongly with Zulu nationalism. That is, of course, the moment you associate yourself as a regional party with a ethnic identity, you are literally putting a cap on your growth. You're basically saying that's it. And if other people then view you as that, then you're not necessarily, or it's going to be very difficult, almost impossible for you to have a national footprint and growth. Now, granted, MK party is as big as they are at almost 15% of the votes from primarily KZN, but they would see that as a even though it's a good thing, 15% nationally, but they'll see that as a cap that they don't want, because they obviously want to govern, and to govern you need a national footprint. So that's what this high command is meant to do. It's meant to diversify the support base of the MK party across the country and to get votes from across the country. This is where people like Floyd Shivambu, having been announced today as the national organizer, are meant to play an instrumental role. Now, if you watched this show on Sunday, Liberty and Friends, or previous week on the Big Daddy Liberty show, I told you one of two outcomes is going to happen insofar as the role that Floyd Shivambu is going to play at the at the MK party. Either one, he is secretly going to be groomed to lead the party at some stage, because the idea will be, here's a guy who comes from the EFF, helped form that party and led it at a second in command, or alternatively, or even additionally, and this is the role he will want, he will be given the role of writing the EFF's, the MK party's policies, indeed setting up their political structures, and then marshalling how organizing its structures should happen, which is effectively what the MK party has been trash in doing. And I mean absolutely trash. This is the same party that has, since to date, never held an elective conference to actually democratically elect its leadership. And that's symptomatic of today's announcement. None of these people who have been announced as part of the high command have actually been elected, primarily because no work has gone into building actual structures for the party that will then lead to an elective conference which equally, seemingly, the MK party has no interest in, because they cite all sorts of nonsense. Oh, we've been infiltrated, some people are being bought, we were told, and that's why we can't hold an elective conference. So someone like Floyd Shivambu will be seen as important, almost instrumental, in helping MK party then do exactly that initial structural building structure work and groundwork, and of course a policy direction from MK for MK party. And indeed, that's exactly what's happened. I told you here first, and you're now seeing it officially as what is the role of the national organizer. Well, let's see from the documents of today's press briefing from the MK party, describing a national organizer, that's Floyd Shivambu, as being responsible, for organizing the development of MK party's organizational documents and guidelines, political education, policy and research, monitoring and evaluation of governance, particularly MK party caucuses and public representatives working with them. End of quote. There you have it. I told you, this is the role they would likely want to Floyd Shivambu to play for the party. And sure enough, they've now codified that and announced as that being the actual role of the party. However, as I said, their announcement today, all smiles, all happy faces. It seems that the MK party are buoyed at the moment. They're enjoying very good, let's argue, good times at the moment. Everything seems to be on the up and up. However, on the other side of the coin is a one Julius Malema, who, after having said everything will be cordial, there's no beef between him and Floyd, he's like a brother. You remember his telling us that, oh, Floyd is like a brother to me. When I found out he was leaving, it was like losing my mother once again. There'll be no bitter words between the two. Well, that didn't last long, as effectively the EFF held a mini rally here in Johannesburg, in Soweto in particular, to which Malema was speaking at that, and boy, did he speak. And most of the jabs he was taking are at two distinct groupings. The first was jabs at Floyd Shivambu, and all of these jabs, by the way, were coded. No names were mentioned. No one is brave enough to call each other out by name, but everything was veiled and coded. And I'm going to play you this first clip where you can see where the MK party is having good times right now. They're announcing new things. There's progress. What has happened in the EFF side, the red corner, is paranoia, a sense of us versus them, and indeed a splitting of this party where, even though this rally was meant to project unity, look, we're all together, despite losing Floyd, we're still one thing, we're still happy, the writing is clearly on the wall, that things within the EFF are tense, and there are clear divisions to which Malema, gullible and indeed the loudmouth that he is, couldn't help himself but to literally speak on to try and be the loudest voice in the room. Listen to this, and you tell me whether this isn't drenched, dripping with an us and them paranoia. Watch this.
See whether they will emerge in the upcoming Third National People's Assembly before they decide whether they will remain in the EFF or not. Many of them are using the Third National People's Assembly as a threat that if they do not get elected or are not part of the leadership discussions leading up to the conference, then they will leave and join MKP. We must never be blackmailed by those who want to threaten us with leaving after the Third National People's Assembly. I want to say to them, leave now. Leave now so that we can know how many soldiers we have in this struggle to liberate our people. You must leave today because nothing is going to change between now and December. Nothing is going to change now and in the future. The future looks bright because we determine it today. We are here to make our destiny for how the future looks like tomorrow. Leave now. We have no reason to beg anyone. If you want to leave, leave now and leave us alone. Even if we are alone, we'll always continue to speak truth to power. It's very painful.
Yo, man, oh man, oh man. Again, you cannot have a yo, the contradictions today. All right, let's unpack them. Let's get into it, folks. You cannot have a situation where you're saying, oh, this is a unity rally. Oh, we're trying to show a united front. You know, we can see this pressure in the party, so we want to show a united front, yada, 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 and then have the leader of your party go, live now. These people, them and that, those people. You're basically confirming the worst fears of actual members of the party who can feel that there is a us and them in the party, and that any message of unity that you're trying to push is completely undermined by your leader then saying, yeah, I'm confirming that there is a them and there is an us, and the us is the party. I am the party, effectively, is what Malema is saying here. Then any disagreement by anybody who chooses to leave or he wants to leave, because he basically commands it of those that he clearly disagrees with in the party, that they must leave now in this particular instance. That is the stuff of an authoritarian. That is the stuff of a dictator. And true to that, like any dictator, and lefties love being dictators, all the great dictators in history have always, nearly always, come from the hard left. Commies, socialists, scum, indeed, statists, authoritarians, and the left are like, when it comes to that ideology, they cannot help it. And at the root of it is the need to control and acquire more power. Don't believe me? Indeed, that same rally that Malema had, he then did exactly what commies do, try to centralize power to themselves as the authoritarian figure of either organization, and if they run a country, of a country, but in this case, an organization. Again, don't take my word for it. That paranoia in the EFF is leading to that us and them nonsense, and indeed the centralizing of power to Malema, the ever-knowing, all-knowing, and ever-green leader of the EFF, the leader who cannot be challenged, clearly, and is going to be leader for life. Watch, as he now takes jabs at the former deputy president. He doesn't name him, but he takes very clear jabs at how the deputy president was running this GNU thing. He didn't like it. So now he's centralizing power as the president of the EFF, of the duties of the deputy president to himself and his office. Watch as the despot, predictable leftist despot, then speaks about how he's doing exactly that.
The people want to take us to GNU.
I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little petty. I'm going to be a little petty and start that from the beginning. What was that in his voice? That was a little high pitched that Malema does. Seems like he lost his balls there for a microsecond. I'm gonna replay that for your enjoyment. Watch again.
No, the people want to take us to GNU. We are concentrating that the possibility of these people going to GNU is very high. They go a different direction of where they wanted to take us. We refuse the GNU. We still refuse it. We don't want the GNU. Fighters, we must make sure that all our councillors and all the deployees are disciplined and continue to pursue that which they've been deployed for. The GTU shall fall under the office of the president, and all powers that belong to the deputy president will go into the office of the president.
There it is. There it is. A scorned and now bitter Malema is now saying, you know what? F that guy who was the deputy president, and F the fact that I ever delegated my power. That's at the center of what you're watching here is a arrogant Malema who believes that he is the EFF. Almost like that famous king, I think it was King Louis, who basically said under criticism, I am the state. In this case, Malema is saying, I am the party, and how dare those who I delegated power to, then having pursued something that he didn't like. Because of that, all of those powers, all of those things that were delegated to the deputy president's office, I'm taking over as Malema. It is an arrogance that is symptomatic and exemplifies the authoritarian left. That is ultimately what the EFF are, authoritarian leftists in this country. But hey, again, as I said, don't listen to Big Daddy. Don't listen to his warnings and what he tells you about commies, statists, and socialists in this country. No. Don't listen to Big Daddy. Rather hear it from the horse's mouth or the commie's mouth.
And everything else that looks like the former deputy president shall be dismantled in the EFF and then gotten rid of with immediate effect.
Personal. Bitter and personal.
The GTU and all those who served in the GTU under the deputy president are dissolved. You want to deploy anyone into the government on behalf of the EFF, you shall report to the office of the president. We are taking charge of our organization now. We are tired of entrusting in the hands of wrong people. We've been betrayed for too long. We've been sold out for too long. We've been trusting for too long. We need to take it into our hands and run it ourselves.
Idiots clap for this. This is clearly an authoritarian speaking and saying, I mean, he uses he's dribbling them, firstly, by using the we language. Basically, what he's saying is, I am taking control of these powers. I am putting them under my control. I am doing this. I. But of course, he's dribbling these people, gullible people, into thinking it's a we thing. It's not a we thing. And if it is a we thing, it's we in the sense of we versus them, as he's established in that first clip I showed you. How do you build unity in an organization when your leader is speaking like that? It's laughable. It's laughable. And so far, the joke's on them as the EFF. Because who's doing poorly at the moment? EFF. Who's seeing a shrinking of their electoral support and effectively going backwards whilst listening to this authoritarian douchebag? EFF. Who is seemingly unhappy with the authoritarian at the top? And there is a clear split in the party, with the co-founder of the bloody party having left to go to an upstart, a new Johnny-come-lately Mafizola party. Who? EFF. That's who. So that if you are a member of the EFF, you should be very worried right now about the collective stability of your party. Because I can tell you now, as things are going forward, things are going to look very bleak for the EFF. Why? Because Jacob Zuma, for as much as Malema, I've always said before, Malema is not stupid and he's politically astute, his counterpart in the MK party, Jacob Zuma is just as politically clever, just as politically astute as he is. And he is clearly smelling blood in the EFF, and he's going after MK party. I'll say it here. MK party is going after the EFF. It's going after them. So that all that bullshit they were sprouting of, oh, we are united, we're the progressive caucus, we're here for black people and Africans in general and in particular, blah, blah, blah. All of that is nonsense. They are fishing in the same pond. Because I told you in the last episode, the hard left in this country as a percentage of voters is about 15% max. That is the hard glass ceiling. That is the left in this country, because most South Africans, the overwhelming majority of voting South Africans, are reasonably practical. They're looking for centrist policies that identify them as being the beneficiaries of property ownership, wealth, prosperity, etc. The very things that create a functional society. Most people are really reasonably centrist on that. And that the hard left is a very small fringe in this country, or significant fringe, but it's fringe nonetheless. So that MK and EFF are fishing in the same pond, and a very astute and sharp Jacob Zuma of the MK upstart recognizes, you know what, instead of on the one hand just focusing on siphoning off ANC voters, I'm going to go after these douchebags too in the left. I'm going to eat their lunch. And that's effectively what you're beginning to see happen. And Malema's not stupid. He can see this. Hence the bitterness, hence the anger, hence the paranoia, hence the need to centralize power to himself. Hey, Zakala. No, die poppe sal dans. All right. I'm going to take it a step further. Because much like every leftist politician, much like every African nationalist politician, politicians who hold these African nationalist views, Afro-nationalist views, in addition to their toxic statism, toxic socialism, toxic communism ideas, they also like being victims. They like gathering support based on a perceived or real sense of, oh, I'm a victim, feel sorry for me, but as a victim, I'll fight for you as victims too, right? So help me, victim in chief, to be the chief victim who can fight for all of you black individuals who are victims too. That's the narrative of the black left in this country, is to paint black people as victims, and that their leader, whether it be Jacob Zuma, because he also does this, and in this case, let me just fix my camera here, and in this case, Malema, he also appropriates a victimhood narrative. But historically, it has always been victimhood to this so-called white monopoly capital, so-called sellouts of the revolution, yada, 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 all this rhetoric that they use. But now that there is an internal war, what's that movie, a famous movie that played Civil War, Avengers Civil War. It's the commies Civil War. That's the movie playing out. Now that there's a civil war involved, it's now I'm a victim of those lefties who are eating my lunch. Watch as Julius Malema appropriates that victimhood, and at the same time still bashes Floyd Shivambu as being the reason why he is now a victim. Watch this.
One of them who can ever said I betrayed them. I've never sold anyone in my entire life. People used me for self-enrichment. People became what they became. I never used them for anything.
Wow. Okay. Again, I'm going to pause here, because even as he's trying to cut himself as the, oh, poor me, poor baby victim, he can't help himself. He still has to brag. I believe the young ones call it humble bragging, where you're shamming being humble, but really you're bragging. Because what is he saying here? Oh, they used me, and I didn't do anything about it. I just allowed it, but they used me. But now they are what they are today because of me. Yo, that is Humble bragging 101. I'm the victim, but they're great because I'm the great one who made them great. What? Okay. Yeah. Let's hear more about your perceived victimhood and how these people screwed you, Julius Malema. Tell us more. Tell us more, please. Do tell us more. Yes.
I can tell you now.
What do
When
you
they
want to
were
tell us?
accused of killing Godrich's daughter, I stood up for them. If I had a problem with them, I would have been a political opportunist and said, you are now accused of a serious allegation. You need to step aside or step down while we're investigating. I said they will never do that. I didn't have to talk to them. That's how much I believed in these comrades.
Oh, you're so selfless. Yes.
Had something like that be said about me, were they going to say, not him?
Oh, no. Boy, you.
Had something about me raping a person said about me, something about rape about me being said, will they say the same thing about me? That not him. But I said without asking them twice whether you were there or not, I said, it's not true. I don't know the facts, but it will never happen. They will never have done that. At every opportunity in their private conversations and in their own cocoons, they took that opportunity to discredit me and speak very bad of me.
Oh.
And they thought I didn't know about it. I know them for who they are. But because I chose you, I choose to live with them for the sake of the unity of our movement.
Bash, bash, bash. Oh, it's about unity. Yeah. Guys, it's clown world stuff at this stage. Clown world stuff at this stage. This idea of, there's two things that are just laughable. Number one, the EFF suggesting that everything is united, it's all good times, when their leader is using us and them language, number one, and two, clearly identifying one, using an us and them language of those people, those evil people, making me a victim, making us look bad, yada, yada. And then secondly, as you're talking about unity, literally having a situation where the leader of the party is not mending the divisions, but instead centralizing power in the party, further alienating himself from people within that party, and indeed centralizing all power to himself. Whilst claiming to be a victim, whilst claiming to unite the party, but also blaming them for the party breaking up, and then bashing them, even if he's doing it indirectly, not saying names. Well. A few days later, Floyd Shivambu likely also listened to this particular ramble by Malema, and clearly he took it personally. It's like that meme, that Michael Jordan meme. I took it personally, and used the opportunity when he was given a chance to say, give some remarks at the announcement at an MK press briefing, used that opportunity to hit back at Malema, again, not naming him, because this whole civil war has been a coded one of veiled jabs at each other. Well, he hit back quite aggressively by essentially pointing out that it's kind of funny, he suggests, that, actually, I'll let him do the talking. I'll let him do the talking because you've got to watch this. It's getting heated, folks.
Forward. So the attempt for unification is not just an opportunistic one because there were electoral declines of the EFF and all of those things. It's a genuine political discussion, which all South Africans must enter into, those who are in favor of the revolution. Because revolution is the content of what we're standing for. It's not just, no, if it's me, you are betraying me. Some people will say, you are betraying me.
Shots fired.
Where does that enter? And you don't even once suggest that I'm betraying the revolution.
Shots fired.
I'll never betray the revolution. Because We're not in the business of trying to please each other's egos here.
That is a shot at Malema. That is a direct shot at Malema, effectively calling him an egotistical megalomaniac. That is a shot at Malema. He didn't name him. As I said, the shots that they're taking at each other are coded, they're veiled. But that was a shot at Malema. Prove me wrong. All right, he goes on to say the following.
We're in the business of building a revolutionary movement that is going to emancipate the black majority and Africans in particular, and we're unapologetic about that. That is what we stand for. And President Zuma, when he was inducting all of us yesterday, he says that we might be friends, we might think we're friends, but friendship won't apply here. If you do not do these things right, you're going to be taken care of appropriately. Some people.
Hey, where my thought? Hey, trust me when I say this, and I see your comment, Time Legacia, and I'm having a good time. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Because again, this is funny. It's funny because if you're a fan of the show, you'll know. I told you this is coming. I told you this is coming. Lefties they can dribble some of you, but they'll never dribble me. I told you the body language at that press conference was telling me that these two, as we say in Zulu. And it's happening. Yes, fine. They aren't necessarily saying each other by name, but it's going to get to that stage eventually because the ordinary rank and file are going to realize, oh, these two don't like each other. They actually don't like each other, despite what they were telling us at face value. And because of that, we'll take that fight on their mantle. Hey, hey, kumnandla. Yay. This is Julius Duplessis versus Adesanya all over again. Only it's the communist version of it all. Yo, all right. Okay, I've had my fun. Let me summate. Let me wrap up. And before I wrap up, there's another thing I want to quickly tackle here because it's said by Floyd Shivambu and it was said by Malema, and this will be also the massive contest, the basis of the massive contest between the two. Who owns the revolution? Who is the rightful face of the quote-unquote revolution? Now remember, lefties, whether they're socialists or communists, have always been about, revolution, true change in society, as Marx and Lenin argued, will happen through some sort of revolutionary act where the proletariat, that is the working class, take on the bourgeoisie or the owner, those who own property in society, and it'll be through revolution. That revolution will then usher in the new age of equality of the classes, blah, 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 fish paste. I know leftist theory like the back of my hand. But effectively, that's what they mean by revolution, right? And that therefore, MK Party and EFF see themselves through their rhetoric as the custodians of that said revolution. And because South African leftism happens through, predictably, the lens of race, of course, that revolution is a racial one. So it's going to be the poor black masses, they tell us, overthrowing the whites and white monopoly capital in order to usher in the so-called socialist equal dystopia, or as they might say, the utopia. But really, it's a dystopian nightmare. Okay, so that's what they're talking about broadly. I've gone into this in detail in other episodes. But the fight, therefore, will be for the very identity of what they consider the revolution to be. Who owns the revolution? Who should be the custodian of it? Who should be the voice of it? That's going to be the fight going forward. Now, it is a fight by proxies because they will use that as a proxy for attacking each other. That's what you're about to see over the next few weeks, over the next few months, over the next few years as we head to the direct contest and butting of these two parties, namely local government elections in a couple of years, and of course the next national elections in 5 years from now. So that the revolution nonsense will be the proxy through which these two sides attack and nibble at each other. And so far, the bigger fish of the two has been MK Party. Will it remain the bigger fish? Time will tell. Will the momentum that they have right now carry on to the local government elections and national government elections? Will they grow or at least maintain their size? Time will tell. But they, of the two parties, that's MK, is the most confident of the two, because so far things are going reasonably well. And from an internal structure perspective, sucking in someone like Floyd Shivambu, who has the experience of building a party from scratch, will be seen by them as a massive victory. Hence the announcement today that he's the national organizer. Hence the announcement today that everything is pashash. Who's on the other side of that spectrum? Well, in the red corner, as I said, is the EFF, where things are not going well, where they're not experiencing growth. In fact, they're going backwards. Where right now, internally, in terms of the structures, things are not looking good there, because there is clearly a split in that party. And that split is at the very top, and it will eventually filter down to the so-called ground forces of the party. Because that's how these things often happen. Don't believe me? Ask the ANC. What happens to you when you start having various splinter groups who break away from the party? It's the end result of that is never a good one. So that there is paranoia, fear, and anger in the EFF, exemplified by one Julius Malema. And there is a sense of quiet excitement in MK Party, because they can see that of all the political lunches that they're going to munch on, EFF lunch is perhaps the most juiciest for them. It's the most readily available. That lunchbox is slightly open. It's just a case of slipping in the fingers and pulling out I nearly said bread, but communists can never deliver bread. So there's that. But nonetheless, so this is a real fight we have on our hands, folks. And it's going to get spicy. It's going to get interesting. Ding, 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 ding. Shivambu versus Malema. That was round one. And in round one, MK Party scores the highest points. And yes. Now, with that being said, we'll keep an eye on this one, as I said. And we'll see how it plays out, because, as I said, we are going to see some very interesting times. And it's going to get very spicy for those who are members of these two parties. And I'll be very interested in seeing what you guys have to say. Are you a member of the EFF? Are you a member of MK Party, or maybe a supporter of these two? What do you think is happening here? I can tell you now, MK people will likely be happier than EFF people. EFF people will probably call me names. But that's fine. I've come to expect that from you folk. But this is how it's going to play out. And it's going to be a fight for the soul of who claims to be the leader of the so-called revolution. That's the proxy. And in that proxy, they will attack each other, they will berate each other, they will cut each other down. So that if you are a supporter of parties that were in the GNU, for example, the Government of National Unity, you could just literally be like, okay, let them fight. Because all that fakery that the lefties tried to do, remember, after the GNU was announced, of, oh, we are now united, with the progressive caucus. There's a lot of talk on social media, remember at the time, no, black parties must unite, and blah, 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 because blacks are somehow we're the same, according to these black leftists. Where is that sameness? Where is that unity now? Dololo. I told you. Don't listen to what they say. Look at what they do and who they are, and you'll quickly see that there's no unity there. These people are very aware of the fact that they are a fringe in this country and that they're fishing in the same pool. No sane, sober, moral, prudent South African, whether black, white, Indian, or colored, votes for parties like the EFF and the like. And that's why collectively these parties are not the majority, even though they always claim, oh, we're the voice of blacks, we're the voice of blah, blah, blah. We're the voice of the majority. No, you're not. You're not. And I think that quiet realization is now seeing them fight amongst each other for who then gets the spoils of this fringe grouping. So that if you're a South African who's worried about EFF or MK Party and the like, don't be necessarily. Again, I'm not saying be blind to their danger. I'm not saying be blind to what they are, but insofar as the here and now, don't be, because they are more worried about each other right now. And that what we, as the rest of South Africa, should be worried about is how do we then support a reform, a change, a progress agenda in this government of national unity? Because if you're an ordinary South African, that's what should matter to you. How can I influence the sort of change and progress that I want to see in government, where ideally government becomes as irrelevant as possible to me, because the power and the resources are in my hands, as the individual, in my hands as families, where the kind of South Africa we want to see is one where South Africans are prosperous, are property owning, live in a non-racial society where race doesn't matter. We no longer pick winners and losers in society based on race, but instead prioritize empowering South Africans so that merit is how we choose winners and losers in South Africa. That's the kind of society we want. The very things that these hard lefties, as they fight amongst themselves, are opposed to. And that any reform agenda, therefore, is driven by that imperative of wanting to create a free, prosperous, property-owning, and non-racial South Africa. That's what government of national unity should be. That's what we should be supporting them to be, a reform agenda of this government. While the lefties and the commies and the statists and socialists argue amongst themselves. But hey, maybe that's just my house and what I believe. Let me know what you think, guys. Let me know what you think. I did promise this will be a short episode. I've broken that promise, 47 minutes in. But I'm sure you've enjoyed tonight's show. Let me know what you think. Share the show. Let me know what you guys think. And with that being said, let's wrap up. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Big Daddy Liberty Show. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think, whether you're watching this broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, or on X. And if it is on any of the streams, hey, do me a favor. Smash that like button. Hit that like button. Tell me where you're watching from. Leave a comment, please. And if you are watching particularly on YouTube, guys, please help me out. Help me reach my goal of 47,000 subscribers by subscribing to the channel. Yeah, well, do me that solid favor. Subscribe to the Big Daddy Liberty channel on YouTube and hit that bell notification so that you're notified every time the show is on. And lastly, find us at our website. Once it's finally up, I keep saying this, it's week 3 now, every host of this situation. Okay, woosah. But find us at our website at bigdaddyliberty.com. Guys, thanks for watching. And as I always say at the end of every episode, and how apt it is tonight, never trust a commie.